Welcome to lucky number 7. Is week 7, and FFL is here for every single second of it. Fantasy Football Live. I'm your host, Jason Fitz, hanging out with the great Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. We're going to be here all the way up till 1 p.m. Eastern to get you ready for what's going to be a wild Sunday of action. And as usual, there's already football going on thanks to international games. We'll update you on that in a moment. Harmon, how are we feeling this morning, buddy?
Well, there's something going on here. I gotta say, man, we'll talk about it. It's been an interesting watch here this morning with the Jaguars offense. But besides that, I'm feeling pretty good about this week. I'm excited. We got a lot of great games. We got a lot of big performances coming up. I'm very jacked up for week 7.
Well, I mean, we're all jacked up for what we're already seeing. Chris Allen, you feel good? Feel ready?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ready. And of course, after seeing my Bengals actually pick up and give me a little bit of hope, I'm a bit more energetic coming into Sunday as compared to the past 3 to 4 weeks. So no, man, let's get into it. Let's talk some ball.
Flacco around and find out. Beautifully done on the sign behind you. Oh, I read that very slowly to make sure that I still have a job tomorrow morning. That's an important Flacco around and find out. That is chef's kiss to that. Justin Boone, how are we feeling this morning?
Feeling great. Last weekend, I was just barely getting through. I felt like I was fighting off that cold. This week, got all the energy back, so I'm kind of matching where Chris is at right now. But I will say, this is one of those bad weekends where we have a bunch of injuries that are happening in the later games, and we got to make decisions on those before the early kickoff. So that is never fun, both from a fantasy player aspect and from a fantasy ranker like myself, trying to make those decisions with not enough information.
For the next 90 minutes, we're going to be with you to get your lineup set. We're going to help you with some difficult decisions, including some breaking actives and inactives that we're getting. Before we get to any of that, remember, hashtag AskFFL is how you get in on the conversation on Twitter X. You can also comment. We've got the YouTube chat up right here, so I'll get some of those in as we go through. 90 minutes away from kickoff. And first, let's get you caught up on the score. In London, Rams-Jags right now going on 21-0. I said earlier this week on Yahoo Sports Daily that after a generation of watching bad football, London finally gets to see a Jags team that's good. They just forgot to show up today. 21-0 right now. The Rams are just absolutely shellacking the Jags. So a tradition like no other. The food in London is bland, and so is the football by the Jags. That's what we know. We'll keep you updated on that game, especially if we get anything from Trevor Lawrence, who just looks like hot garbage so far today. But I want to get straight to the actives, inactives. We got some big news here, some breaking news. We'll throw this up on the sheet. Stephon Diggs, active. You see Brock Bowers, inactive. We just found out Jacoby Myers, also inactive for the Raiders in this game. Garrett Wilson is inactive on this one too. So, and then let's take a look at some of the later action that we've got this afternoon coming at you. We've got Josh Jacobs, a game-time decision with illness. We do not have any updates on that yet. Brock Purdy is out with the toe injury. Kittle expected to play. Deebo Samuel is also out. So let's take a look at this Josh Jacobs situation, Boone. How do we handle this when you've got a running back that is such a key for so many rosters, and we just don't know if he's going to play?
Yeah, we don't. And if you're going to wait on him, you better have a backup ready to go just in case. Harmon and I were talking before the show about how we have other players, not nearly as good as Josh Jacobs, but other guys that we could slot in if he's inactive, if we find that out later. Now, he did say, apparently, according to reports, that he feels like he'll be able to play, but I will caution that normally players are a little confident, a little overconfident when it comes to their health. They tend to always feel like they can get out there. And the Packers training staff over the years has generally been one that errs on the side of caution. So I always keep that in mind when I'm trying to make these decisions. But right now, I've moved Jacobs down to like the low end RB1 territory. He would have been a top 5 play, but because of this injury, and even if he is out there, is he going to be 100%? If they get up in the game, will they sit him? Will they bring in other guys like Emmanuel Wilson or Chris Brooks? And it's funny that early in the season, Chris Brooks looked like he was the backup for the first couple games. But since then, Emmanuel Wilson has been the guy. So if Jacobs doesn't go, Emmanuel Wilson jumps up into the top 20. He would be a great RB2 to play this week. But we just don't know if that's going to be the case or not. So regardless, Emmanuel Wilson may be a decent flex play if Jacobs is active. But it's just a very difficult situation. So hopefully you got another option ready and you can wait on Jacobs.
Let's bring up the Monday board because that obviously impacts everybody as we know right now. Actives, inactives. Mike Evans expected to play. Emeka Egbuka will be a game-time decision. Bucky Irving, Christian Kirk, both out in this one. So, Chris, what are we supposed to do with the wide receiver positions here for Tampa Bay?
So I'll talk about it a bit later, just regarding Tez Johnson, some of the other ancillary pass catchers. If you've got Emeka Egbuka, you're probably holding out just for the fact that you were likely able to pick up some of the other backups to Baker Mayfield's passing game, whether it's Sterling Shepard or Tez Johnson. So with the time that you do have in order to essentially wait this out, my expectation, or at least the way that I'm trying to approach it, is they shouldn't try and rush this back. I know that Adam Schefter reported it's a low-grade hamstring injury, but with the way that they've treated other hamstring injuries in the past, and I know Mike Evans is a bit older than somebody like Egbuka, seeing them err on the side of caution, kind of to what Boone was saying earlier for the other wide receivers or the other players that are hurt, I would expect them to try and let Egbuka get some rest. Because look at it right now. They've got Mike Evans, they've got Egbuka, they've got Chris Godwin. None of those guys have been on the field yet together. So trying to get them both to the point where we can see that wide receiver core all on the field together at some point, I would say that's the way that they try and play it. So either way, you should have a chance to at least get into that game with some of the other pass catchers that you should be able to find on the waiver wire.
All right, gentlemen, let's take a look at what to watch in Week 7 storylines we've got our eyes on across the league. We'll start with you, Justin. Boone, what do you got your eyes on, Boone?
Who's going to be leading this Panthers backfield? It's like the biggest fantasy question all week, and we haven't really gotten anyone tipping their hand on how this is going to go. The most that we got was this morning. There were some reports that they're going to give them each a series early on and then see how it goes from there. Now, Chuba Hubbard coming back from this calf injury, I don't know that he is 100%, but you also wonder, is he worried about potentially losing his job, and is he kind of rushing to get back out there? And then Rico Dowdle, just 2 fantastic games in great matchups. This week going to be a little bit tougher, and now it looks like he's going to be splitting in some capacity here. So it's unfortunate from a fantasy angle because it kind of bumps down the ceiling for both guys, but I think at least this week, Dowdle has the edge to lead this backfield. I look at him as a mid to low end RB2, where I still think Chuba Hubbard is a flex play based on what we're expecting this to look like, based on both these guys probably getting a decent amount of snaps in this game, and a game where the Panthers can certainly be competitive, a game where the Panthers can certainly get that running game going like they have the last few weeks. So both these guys are in play as fantasy options this week. Over the long term, I would favor Chuba Hubbard taking over this backfield again in maybe a 55-45 or a 60-40 split. But this week, I still think you can play Dowdle as the better option.
All right, Chris, what do you got your eyes on first storyline this week?
So for me, I'm looking to this Chargers and Colts game. And is this going to be the first game where Daniel Jones gets pressed into, let's say, a back and forth type of matchup to force him to pass a bit more? And now I'm going to call him Daniel Jones or maybe Danny Dimes. I'm not on the Indiana Jones thing. I was a kid that was born in the 80s. Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford to me, not a dude that was born like literally 5 decades afterwards. I'm not doing that. But still, all the good stuff for Daniel Jones as of right now. Top 5, top 6 marks in almost every passing efficiency metric, from EPA per dropback to passing success rate. Even the fact that he's only taken 5 sacks on the season, this is not the same Daniel Jones that was wearing a Giants uniform however many years ago. But let's look at the offenses that he's played against. Played against Tua Tagovailoa in the Miami's offense. Played against Cam Ward in the Titans offense. 4 of the 6 offenses that they've played against have been in the bottom 12 in terms of scrimmage yards per game. He's 26th in dropbacks. Daniel Jones is 26th in dropbacks per game, especially even when they get into the second half. The amount of leads that they've been able to generate, I mean, he's 4th fewest plays per game once you get into the second half. But now going up against this Chargers offense that we know Justin Herbert can put the score against, or put the pressure on an opposing offense and opposing defense. And of course, look at the Colts secondary. Xavier Howard's retired. They got Charvarius Ward on the concussion protocol. He's on IR. And Kenny Moore, one of their corners, he's coming in with an Achilles injury. He's got the Q tag as well. Is this going to be that type of back and forth matchup that we get Daniel Jones to really see who is this quarterback that we're now seeing through 6-7 weeks of the season? So that's the type of thing I'm looking for. Is Daniel Jones going to be somebody that has been able to resuscitate his career, or do we see some of the older Daniel Jones start to come out?
I love that. Also, you're right, Harrison Ford. It's the reason that the Solo movies sucked for Star Wars, too. You just like Han Solo's Harrison Ford. Like, there's just certain things that they're non-negotiable. Storyline I got my eye on this week. This is the get-right week for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. I've been saying it since before the season even started. You cannot panic about Kansas City until we see Rashee Rice. So what's the Rashee ripple effect? And the question here is, how much can they take advantage of a secondary in Vegas that is just not very good? So this game being in Arrowhead, gives you a lot of opportunity for this offense to be explosive at different levels. The Raiders, I think, probably have the front seven that they want to have to try and be able to slow down guys like Kelsey, maybe for the first time in a long time. But that doesn't help the back end of their defense, which is really susceptible. The only way they can slow down this offense is if they can get at Mahomes, and even if they can, it's just going to be what is the ripple effect for Rashee? What's it also mean for the rest of that offense? I think it's going to open up the entirety of the Chiefs offense, especially on the breaking news if you're just tuning in this morning that there's no Brock Bowers and no Jacoby Myers. This feels like a game where the Chiefs are going to have the ball a lot. The Chiefs are going to put up a lot of points. We're going to see a much different version of Kansas City. Harmon, what do you got for me as your storyline to watch?
Yeah, Tennessee Titans moved on from head coach Brian Callahan, and reportedly there was at least a part of the decision is that they did not want Mike Vrabel coming back to town to be what ended the Brian Callahan era in this game, because that is what is about to happen. Mike Vrabel is about to come back to this Tennessee Titans team and drop a hammer on them. All of your New England Patriots are really good fantasy plays in this matchup. Drake May has emerged as not just a great fantasy quarterback, but a great real-life quarterback. He's been electric so far this season. Stephon Diggs being active means you can put him in your lineup despite a slow week last week. That's not something I'm panicking about. Also, Kayshon Boutt's a guy that, I mean, this is the type of matchup you want to use Kayshon Boutte. He's going to be up and down throughout the course of the season, but we saw last week when it's softer coverage out on the perimeter, they have a weaker cornerback room, which is what the Tennessee Titans certainly do have. You can throw out Kayshon Boutte and hope for that ceiling matchup. And lastly, I know fantasy managers aren't going to want it to be this guy, but Ramondre Stevenson is in a really good spot here as well. The Patriots are heavy favorites. They should be at a run-heavy game script. And Tennessee has given up the most yards and touchdowns on gap scheme runs, which is what the Patriots specialize in. If you have Ramondre and you've got some problems at your running back spot, I don't think he's the worst running back to play this week either.
Yeah, it could be a bloodbath there. And Amy Adams-Strunk is really making a challenge to be the worst owner in all of sports, not just the NFL. We'll see how that plays out. Justin Boone, he's our resident rankings expert. He's going to break down the final rankings. He's got some tweaks to get in before kickoff. So he'll break it down. He'll rejoin us shortly. In the meantime, let's get to some last-minute pickups. There are still some people out there that you can grab off the wire right now and play. Chris, give me somebody you got your eye on for a last-minute pickup.
So like we were just talking about with the potential for the Bucs wide receivers to be banged up and either unavailable for this game, Tez Johnson, their rookie, is one of the guys that I'm looking to as a guy you can potentially pick up and start. But let's wait for a bit more news on that. But still, here are the positives for Tez Johnson. Not the MVP chance that we're talking that were being shouted out after he scored the touchdown, but on the 9 dropbacks for Baker Mayfield in the second half against the 49ers, 100% route participation rate for Tez Johnson, 25% target rate. So he was actually seeing like some more of the work that you would want to see on a guy that, I mean, put in a situation where he was put out as an emergency type of wide receiver. I get that. But still, he wound up catching the touchdown. I mean, all the things that you'd want to see for the wide receiver. The bad, I mean, potential lack of rapport with Baker Mayfield, but he hasn't been out on the field all that often because they do have so many other options as of right now. I mean, he did have the one catch that he wound up getting a touchdown against, but also a lack of connection on a couple of the outbreaking routes that he had with Baker Mayfield. So it's just one of those things where the volume might be there, assuming that he gets the start, but still we might have to at least go through some of those same types of out of sync type of situations that we've seen for some of the rookie wide receivers in the past. But going up against the Detroit secondary that's going to be without Terrion Arnold, Kirby Joseph, and even Brian Doublebird Branch, I mean, there's a chance that we can see Tez Johnson get into the end zone again.
Doublebird Branch is a spectacular nickname and a tradition like no other. The Lions defense being banged up. All right, Harmon, give me a last minute pickup you've got your eyes on.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of interesting options here this week, but one player that I think is pretty appealing that might be a little bit under the radar is Alec Pierce, Colts wide receiver. Couple reasons I like Alec Pierce in this game. Number one, it should be a high total affair. I like both offenses, the way they're playing right now. I think the Chargers can get over on this Colts defense because of their cornerback room, which that means the Colts are going to have to take to the air a little bit here. While it's not the cleanest matchup in the world against a really good Chargers secondary, Alec Pierce is on the field all the time. He's a full-time player who I think has grown in his game. He should have more targets available this week with no Josh Downs, who actually leads the team in targets over the last 3 weeks. So Pierce, I think he has developed a little bit. He's not just purely a shot play guy. I've seen a lot of growth from him in terms of running routes over the middle, bigger in-breakers in the intermediate area, and of course, Daniel Jones is willing to throw in that area. So at a sub like 15% roster player right now, I think Alec Pierce, you could do a lot worse if you need some help deeper down the wide receiver rankings.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take a look at some of the comments. It's time to check the chat as we're getting questions in the YouTube chat. We'll get to some of these answered here. Chris Williams says, feeling good right now. Davante Adams doing his thing. And Chris, we shouldn't be surprised by it. Like I think the downplay of Davante Adams has been sort of shocking to me. He's still an absolute beast in this league.
Well, no, and also playing with Matthew Stafford that we know has been a kingmaker for wide receivers and how concentrated that passing offense was going to be coming into the season. You remove Puka Nacua from that offense for this game, and of course, a lot of the targets were going to funnel towards Davante Adams. But no, it's dope at his age to see him do his thing, but in this offense and the way he's being used, of course, this should be the wide receiver one type week for a guy like Adams.
Yeah, but at one point, the Rams also had targets to 8 different receivers in the first quarter. So they're spreading the ball out everywhere. Aaron Starr, I think I'm saying the first name right. Sorry if I'm not, Aaron. I appreciate the comment. Trevor Lawrence always looks like he's surprised things aren't easier to me. Harmon, I do think it's fair. Like I just watched Trevor Lawrence on 4th down, not really figure out how to get rid of the ball. We kill a lot of quarterbacks for that. Trevor Lawrence is not playing particularly well.
Yeah, it's definitely been an up and down season, to say the least, for Trevor Lawrence. There's just always something just a little bit off, whether it's the pocket presence. I think he's got decent movement in the pocket, but like decision making once he gets flushed has been a problem. I also think he's just not a consistently accurate quarterback. That has been it's these like narrow misses for him. That's just been the theme of the course of his career. Unfortunately, like there's just been no. The throws are there for Lawrence. The throws are definitely there for him. It's just he hasn't always been willing to take them, and when he does take them, they're not always consistently on the money. That's not to say that everybody else in Jacksonville has been perfect or blameless with some of the volatility in the offense, but yes, the quarterback is absolutely, no question, contributing to some of the up and downs here.
Next comment comes from Jermaine34, who says, Williams or Fields or hit the wire? What do you think, Chris?
I will go Caleb Williams in this matchup just because of the lack of, I would say, the one losing Garrett Wilson for this game, who's been Fields' primary target. I would say Caleb Williams having all the wide receivers in this matchup against the Saints. I would say Williams is probably the better of those two.
All right, and the next question or comment comes from Ryan, who says, why is everyone so high on Rice? Hasn't played a game since September 24. He's only had 3 practices. Didn't even have access to the playbook. That ain't football shape. Harmon, before I get your thoughts on this, tell me if I'm wrong, all right? I'm just saying a couple of things here. One, he wasn't injured, so he's been out there playing with his own or working with his own training team, absolutely. 2, the playbook hasn't changed. And 3, when you add a level of speed that he has, that changes the elements of the way you defend the Chiefs, which is why I think people are high on him. What am I missing, Harmon?
The only thing I think that Ryan's got a good point on here, and I think has gone under discussed in the Rashee Rice return, is that he is coming off of a major injury from last season. Now, that he's had 6 weeks to ramp up here. Obviously, he played in the preseason. I know he was active throughout training camp, the whole deal. But if he comes back and he's slightly limited off of a 6-week layoff, I wouldn't be totally shocked by that. I also wouldn't be freaking out if I had him in fantasy football. And, you know, again, there's just some level of, we just yada these injuries at times. I remember with Tank Dell last year, that's the example I always come back to. Well, yeah, he ended the year on IR, but he's been back. He's been in there all throughout training camp, the whole deal. And then you get to week 1, and it's like, well, that guy might be wearing number 3 for the Houston Texans, but he's not playing like rookie year Tank Dell. And that was very obvious. So that's something that I just think is worth keeping in the back of your mind. It's a possible thing that could go wrong here. But for the most part, I do think Rice just drops right back into his role. Maybe not like a 10 to 12 target per game player, because there are other guys that are stepping up right now. But I think he should be fully active and really help this team where they need the most help, which is over the middle, intermediate area. Hopefully we see some growth from him there as an individual player too.
Which, again, is going to be attacking a weakness on the Raiders' defense. I think he's going to have a huge game. All right, let's get to Fantasy Feast, all right? So we start talking about Fantasy Feast will come up next. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to figure out what we're talking about. We're going to figure out a matchup that we absolutely love and somebody that's going to feast in Jerry's world. Has Dak Prescott played his way into the MVP conversation? We'll talk about it next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. I'm Jason Fitz, sitting with Matt Harmon and Chris Allen. Still 21-0. We'll keep you updated if anything happens in London. In the meantime, an actual good game is going to be happening this weekend. Commanders at Cowboys. Cowboys favored in this one by 1.5. The over-under on it, 54.5. That's a game this afternoon in Dallas. So let's take a look at this. What do you think, Chris Allen? Give me something you think could feast today.
Dak Prescott should be able to feast on this Commanders secondary. And thinking about how well Prescott has played, he's played himself into the MVP conversation, right? I mean, as of right now, I know that his passing volume has been up there, but top 10 marks across the board in terms of completion percentage over expected, passing success rate, EPA per dropback. And of course, Prescott is still playing the same ball that he has since he came into the league. According to Next Gen Stats, 19.2% of his passes have come with a defender within 1 yard or less. I mean, if there's a tight window throw, you know Prescott's going to make it. And that's been without CeeDee Lamb for the past 3-ish games or so. And we've seen, and Harmon and I, we've talked about how Pickens has really ascended into that wide receiver 1 or 1B type role that we hoped he would when he came down from Pittsburgh. But we've also had pop-up games from Ryan Flournoy, Jake Ferguson really starting to come into his own as a tight end 1, but that might drop back from a volume standpoint. But all that to say, this should be the game that Prescott really makes his stamp on the league in terms of being in that MVP type conversation. But again, I guess my only concern is that with the way that the defense has been playing, I don't know, guys, there was a quarterback last year that had a poor defense, had a couple of tough losses. His wide receiver also won the Triple Crown. Can't really remember his name or anything like that. So that's my only concern about Dak Prescott as an MVP candidate. But otherwise, for today, he should be able to feast on the Commander secondary.
That is an elite shirt you're wearing, by the way. Homage did a great job with that. That is an elite chef's kiss. I still look at my Derek Carr, Devontae Adams one and think what might have been. Look, I'll give you a fantasy feast conversation much along the same lines. Because, look, for me, it's wheels up on CeeDee, right? Like, you mentioned all that great information about Dak. I don't want to bog anybody down with details here, but after the Cowboys win today, and I think they will, they'll be 3-1 and sitting right in the thick of the playoff contention. Depending on what happens with Philly, they can find themselves in first place in the NFC East. Let's go. Like, for all the conversation about what's broken for the Cowboys, this offense is not part of that. And yes, because, as Chris pointed out, we know that defense is hot garbage. Like, it's just trash. They're going to have to find a way to score a bunch of points. Well, when they have CeeDee on the field, they are going to do that, and they're going to do that over and over and over again. I think one of the delights of this season has been what CeeDee meant for George Pickens early on, and at this point, if I'm the Cowboys, I know my method for success. My method is simple. I need to feed CeeDee, I need to feed him often, and then that opens everything up for everybody else. So I think CeeDee's going to have a big game. I think the Cowboys are going to have a big game. I think the Cowboys are going to win this football game, and then they're going to force a slightly different conversation about a team that we like to talk about as sucking, even though they're actually pretty good. Matt, what do you got your eyes on in this one?
Yeah, can Jaden Daniels continue to elevate the pass catchers in Washington? Because guess what, boys? He's going to have to. We have no Terry McLaurin and no Deebo Samuel in this game, which means it is an interesting collection of players around Jaden Daniels for a matchup where we all want to throw at this Cowboys secondary. We want to get guys rolling here. And it's, last week, Chris Moore is the number 2 wide receiver in terms of route participation. Did have a pretty sick touchdown catch, so that was nice to see. Again, just a guy in Jaden Daniels getting it done with whoever is out there. You're also going to have Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, not exactly household names here. I do have some fascination with a guy like Luke McCaffrey who's popped up for some big plays over the course of the last few weeks. I am actually weirdly intrigued to see him get some more playing time, even though I'd certainly rather it be Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin because I have a lot of Jaden Daniels teams out there. But I trust this guy as somebody who can be a talent elevator. He's been that since he got to Washington. So I have no hesitations with Jaden Daniels, even though it is it's a spot where you'd love to have your top 2 receivers. We've got enough guys here that are intriguing for Jaden Daniels to still get it done. Now it's just who else is going to step up around him. That's a pretty different question.
Drew asked in the chat which Commanders wide receivers you would pick. Is it for I'll say we just heard Harmon. You made it pretty clear it's Luke McCaffrey. Chris, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Chris Moore, like Matt was just mentioning, I mean, he's mixed in a bit here and there, but we've seen enough of Chris Moore that my hope would be that Luke McCaffrey is the one that winds up getting the benefit of Deebo being out.
Okay,
It's also
I just
probably
wanna
Zach
see Luke-
Ertz, real quick. I think Zach Ertz is the guy who probably steps up and has the most production here. 6 targets last week, led the team. He was the second most route participation player behind only Deebo Samuel, who didn't really do much. So if you need help at tight end, Zach Ertz is out there, and he's somebody that can help you.
I just want to see Luke McCaffrey and Lad McConkey put on the same team just so we can all get confused. All right, let's get to some panic meter here. Panic meter, when is it time to just go, and scream like a child? Matt Harmon, not really your style to go, and scream like a child, but we'll let you have the chance. Panic meter, what are you panicking about?
I mean, I think A.J. Brown's struggles continue here this week. People that have had A.J. Brown on their fantasy teams have been panicking all season long, and I think we're going to have yet another panic week here. The Minnesota Vikings, obviously the matchup here this week, they are notoriously a really difficult secondary to play against, particularly for a wide receiver where they lead, they have allowed the fewest receptions to teams with wide receivers lined up out wide. A.J. Brown in this offense this year with Kevin Patullo has exclusively been an outside wide receiver. He almost never goes into the slot. So 24 receptions allowed by the Minnesota Vikings to outside wide receivers, fewest in the league. Also, they play a bunch of zone coverage. They're very zone heavy. They mix and match a lot of different coverages on the back end. That has been another area where Jalen Hurts in this passing offense has historically struggled. According to Fantasy Points data, these are the bottom 5 offenses right now in fantasy points per dropback going against zone coverage. Cleveland Browns, Tennessee Titans, Cincinnati Bengals, Miami Dolphins, Philadelphia Eagles. Not exactly the company that you want to be in if you're Jalen Hurts and a fully stocked cast of wide receivers. So I don't know if you're brave enough to bench A.J. Brown, but I certainly think you can do it in this matchup where this is just not the right setup for a player of his skill set, and it really hasn't been the right situation for him all year long.
Oh, I can't wait for the chaos tomorrow if all of that turns out to be the case. Chris, what do you got for us? What's your panic meter?
So the thing I've been panicking over the past few weeks is who should we start out of this Seattle backfield? Because on the one hand, we came into this season, and I'll raise my hand up and say that I was one of those people to say that we should be drafting Ken Walker at cost. 4th, 5th rounder, absolutely draft him. But I've also been the other guy saying that you should also draft Zach Charbonnet because from a handcuff standpoint, if you want a contingent running back that might have weekly value, you should also definitely draft Zach Charbonnet. And, well, OC Clint Kubiak probably feels the same way because he's playing both of them as if they are 2 awesome or solid running backs that you want to try and play or at least mix in on a drive-to-drive basis. Because over the past 3 weeks, because remember it was Charbonnet still nursing the foot injury, and then we had Zach Charbonnet out. So the past 3 weeks, both have been healthy. We've seen Zach Charbonnet's rush attempts ramp up from 36% up to 55%. And then Ken Walker, his rush attempt share has dropped from 58% down to 45%. And now this also comes on the heel of a game where against the Jaguars, we saw not 1, not 2, but 3 cracks for Zach Charbonnet from inside the 10-yard line that went for 6 yards, 0 yards, and -2 yards. People have been clamoring to see more of Kenneth Walker once they get into the goal line. And from a tape and a rushing efficiency standpoint, they're probably right to want that. I mean, Kenneth Walker right now, 4.2 adjusted yards after contact per attempt, which is almost double that of Zach Charbonnet. And of course, the explosive rushing and the forced missed contact, also those rates go towards Kenneth Walker. But we do know that he is nursing that foot injury that happened throughout the preseason. So the fact that they're trying to manage it well enough so that they can get to the playoffs, because they are at least tied for the lead right now, like in the NFC West, trying to navigate that along with the fact that we want to see more of Walker, it's going to be tough. So I am very much panicking if I have either one of those 2 on my roster.
All right, I'll let you guys grab a sip of water and calm down. Don't want you guys to panic too much. And we'll bring in Justin Boone, who's breaking ranks. Boone's been figuring out who's moving up, who's moving down, how we can adjust the boards based on the latest, greatest news. Boone, what do you got for us? Give me the first person that's breaking ranks for you.
Yeah, I got 3 to talk about, and this is, like I said off the top, it is not a fun week to try to parse through some of this stuff, but the first guy that I want to go over is Zach Ertz. I've moved him up to tight end 10. I heard you guys talk about him. Harmon mentioned him there a second ago. No Deebo, no Terry McLaurin. The young receivers and the veteran Chris Moore, they're interesting as like wide receiver 4 flex plays. We might see someone pop off, but I really think this comes down to Zach Ertz getting a ton of volume in a good matchup here. There's a big total on this game. It's going to be a lot of points in this one, and we know that I think if there's touchdowns to be had, Zach Ertz, when Jaden Daniels is active, he tends to be the guy that scores them. So Zach Ertz, a strong tight end 1 play this week. The second guy, Trey Tucker, up to wide receiver 35. We just got the news that Jakobi Meyers is going to be out, so that vaults Trey Tucker up into the number 1 role in this offense. And even with Meyers out there for a bunch of games, he's been really good. Trey Tucker, at least 50 yards in 4 of his 6 games this year. We know a few weeks back he had that monster game with 3 touchdowns. I don't think we're going to see anything like that this week, but he's going to get some volume to go along with the explosiveness. He's a guy that you could definitely slot in as a wide receiver 3 and a wide receiver 3 with some upside in that role. And then for the last one, let's go back to the Commanders. Let's talk about one of those receivers. If you had to pick between Luke McCaffrey and Chris Moore and Jalen Lane, I am going with Luke McCaffrey. I have him as the wide receiver 44. I think he's the best bet of the bunch. We've seen him score touchdowns this year. I think he profiles as the guy that's going to get the most volume there, has the best chance to score a touchdown. I think he's the guy, if you're picking from those guys off the waiver wire, he's the one to grab and slot into your lineup because you want pieces of this game, whether it's the Commanders side or the Cowboys side. And we're kind of getting lucky that on the Commanders side, there are a lot of options to pick through here because the top names are out. So Luke McCaffrey, certainly somebody that you can get in your lineup this week.
Great work by you, Boone. Let's bring the boys back in and let's run a little bit of hurry-up offense. We put 25 seconds on the clock. We'll get some of your questions in, and we'll see if the guys can get them answered. First one comes in, Dark Side Dogs. All right, PPR League, pick one to start. Harold Fannin, Tez Johnson, or Troy Franklin. Boone, what do you think?
Let's see here. Harold Fannin, Tez Johnson, or Troy Franklin. I'm going to go with Harold Fannin. I know that game, it doesn't look great. There's going to be some bad weather, but I think that only plays into Fannin, who's going to get a ton of volume. Basically could be like the de facto number 1 receiver on that team. We know he's got the yak ability. I'm going with Fannin.
A little bit of a delay game there, Boone. Well, we'll forgive it. All right, 25 seconds comes up. Tommy McGuire comes in for Harmon, says, need one wide receiver to start PPR. A.J. Brown, Minnesota's good against wide receivers. Jordan Addison, Diggs, Golden, or MHJ. What do you got?
Yeah, all pretty decent options here. Diggs is the guy I have ranked the highest. The fact that he's active, I feel pretty good about that. Again, slow week last week, not too concerned about it. He's clearly a focal point of this offense. As I pointed out, A.J. Brown, the matchup is obviously not ideal, so I would go with Diggs here.
With 2 seconds to spare. Well done by Harmon. All right, Chris, next one comes to you. Joel, half PPR, worthy or born? Hashtag ask FFL. What do you got? Chris.
I'll take the guy that's not going to face AJ Terrell in this matchup for the 49ers going up against the Falcons in prime time. And so with Worthy, I know that there's going to be some concern with Rashee Rice taking a lot of those targets, but that should open up some of the deep work that Xavier Worthy still might be able to get. I know he's been banged up the past couple of weeks, but still had enough practices where in this game where we actually got to see the Chiefs passing game, I'll go Worthy.
All right, and then we get one more from Justin for Justin. Boone, this one comes to you. Hashtag AskFFL. Trade Jordan Mason for Isaiah Pacheco? What do you think?
No. Even when Aaron Jones was healthy, we saw Jordan Mason taking over that job. Isaiah Pacheco, I do think things are going to get better for him. The usage looked a little better last week. Now the Chiefs are going to be healthy. He might get some more scoring opportunities, but there's a reason why he's in our coping corner on the Panic Meter shows on Monday. And that's, you're going with Jordan Mason here. Jordan Mason, a strong back on an offense that's only going to get better in Minnesota.
All right. You keep the questions coming. Keep the comments coming in the chat. We're going to get even more of them as we go all the way to 1 o'clock to kickoff. In the meantime, you're watching this because you love fantasy football. But did you know it's only 2 days until the opening night in the NBA, and Yahoo has a brand new way to get in on the action in fantasy basketball like you've never seen before. Simple roster scoring. Check it out. This is High Score. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. We're going to be here all the way up until kickoff at 1 p.m. to get you the latest information. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. Got a lot we're going to get into. Plus, don't forget, our own Scott Pianowski just settled in. Got a little hot cocoa, and he's ready to answer all of your questions on Twitter X. To field your last-minute questions, I don't know, it might be apple cider today. Just be sure to use the hashtag AskFFL. It feels like apple cider season, right? Like, in my mind, Pianowski's sitting with a little warm cider and a little cider donut. You can tell I'm sitting in New England. Let's check the score in London, where, frankly, they need a drink to get through this dog-you-know-what of a game. It's 21-0 right now. You see Devontae has 4 catches, 2 touchdowns. They've been spreading the ball around a lot for the Rams. It is a rainy, sloppy day. Trevor Lawrence, 185 yards passing and absolutely no points. Let's lock it in at this point. If you locked in anything with the Jags, you're screwed. But we're going to make the rest of the show fun anyway. Let's lock it in. Somebody, no matter the matchup, you are locking them in. Justin Boone, what's he got for me?
I'm taking a risk on this one because this matchup is not good against the Broncos, but I'm going with Cam Skattebo here. We know the volume is so important for running backs. This guy is getting a ton of it, basically RB1 volume out there, at least 21 touches in 3 straight games. That personality is infectious, that enthusiasm with him and Jackson Dart. They're helping to really turn around the culture and make the Giants a competitive team. I'm curious to see how they stack up against the Broncos because you think back to the last game against the Eagles, and we thought that was going to be a tough one for them. They still came through there. So I think even in a difficult matchup here, we're going to see Cam Skattebo have a good game because the Broncos defense, they have been hit a little bit by running backs in the past. 88 scrimmage yards to Saquon, 71 to Chase Brown, 129 to Marion Hampton, a 215 to Jonathan Taylor, 89 to Tony Pollard. So with the volume, Cam Skattebo can get there for you today.
Also, this close to Halloween, anybody that's last name is Skattebo has to have some success, please. I'm not proud of it either. Chris, give me what. I knew I'd get some judgment on it. Still had to try it. Chris, what do you got? Who you locking in?
I don't have a Halloween narrative for this one or anything like that, but I'm going to lock in Odunze for this week. And I know folks might have some general concerns about this Saints-Bears game just because of the potential win, but that's my area. That's the thing that I do. And even though that it's going to have 20-plus mile-per-hour winds in that game, Soldier Field is oriented at 175-degree azimuth, and the winds are coming out of the northwest, and that's a bunch of fancy words to say the winds are going to be in line with the stadium. And if you're a golfer, it's like playing with a tailwind or a headwind. You don't have to adjust for a cross breeze, even though for me personally, I just wind up slicing it regardless of how I wind up setting up my drives. But still, let's focus on Odunze for a second. Over 40% of the team's air yards in back-to-back weeks, and even though he was down to about a 17% target rate in week 6, I mean, that was just one fewer target than Olamide Zaccheaus. I mean, that was a game that was in the rain, in prime time. My guess is that this is going to shift back towards Odunze in this game. And this is also against the game against the Saints, where they've been beat up by perimeter wide receivers so far. JSN, 5 for 94 and a touchdown. Kayshon Boutte, 464 and a touchdown. Juwan Jennings, Marvin Harrison. I mean, a lot of the wide receivers that have gone against them also fit into a similar archetype of Odunze. So if there's anybody out of that game I have the most confidence in, it's Rome.
By the way, we have a touchdown in London, but not for the Jags. Another touchdown for the Rams, a 31-yard touchdown pass to Terrence, don't call me Turd Ferguson. It's funny because it's a big hat. 31 yards. It's a big touchdown for Terrence Ferguson, and the Rams are up 28-0. Matt Harmon, give me one player that you are locking in this weekend.
Yeah, I'll go to the other bad weather game of this week and bring absolutely 0% of the scientific analysis that Chris Allen just gave us, which was great on the last one. I don't know about any of that. I don't know about wind directions, none of that stuff, but I know that I'm locking Jalen Waddle into my matchups in this particular game because guess what? That guy is just too good right now. He caught a lot of flack the last couple of years because his efficiency metrics dropped, his production dropped, but what non-ball knowers did not realize was that he was simply too deep in the progression to really ever get the football when Tua is getting rid of it in fewer than 2.6 seconds on a snap-by-snap basis. He had, Jonnu Smith to deal with. He had Devon Achane, the Mickey Mouse stuff that those guys were doing, some of the Tyreek Hill designer targets as well. Now that Tyreek Hill is removed, Jonnu Smith is playing in Pittsburgh. We've seen the last couple of weeks, Jalen Waddle, 55.5% of the air yards, 26.6% of the targets. Yes, it's a tough matchup against a Browns defense with Denzel Ward, who plays really well, and we've got some wins and weather and all that. But right now, Jalen Waddle is simply playing too well to ever put him on your bench. He's getting too much opportunity, so I am locking him into my matchups and my lineups regardless of what's going on with the weather.
All right, Harmon and I are going to sit down and figure out what other cheesy puns we can work into the rest of the show. In the meantime, Boone, Chris, why don't you guys give us some fantasy face-off? Harmon's not going to help me. He's not going to help me.
All right, Chris, let's take a look at this one. And somebody who was leading my waiver wire column this week, a guy who's been a pickup the last 2 weeks here, Kimani Vidal on the Chargers, goes out, has that huge game last week, but it was one of the better matchups against the Dolphins. So let's see how he stacks up against some of the other guys, some of the more household names that are in a similar range to him this week. And let's start with Kimani Vidal versus DeAndre Swift, who for fantasy keeps coming through, even though a lot of people are just waiting for the bottom to fall out.
Yeah, and I would love to hear your take on this one, because I would go Swift in this particular matchup, because even though he's coming into this game with the Q tag, I think he had the groin injury that popped up earlier in the week, 56% of the rushing attempts in their week 6 game, and that was coming out of the bye, where we thought it might be a little bit more Kyle Monangai or any of the other RBs there for Chicago. And along with hoarding most of the attempts, also a 10% target rate. And so he'll go up against the Saints defense that's allowing the 10th highest completion rate to running backs. So while Vidal played well enough, I think the sure workload for Swift gives him the edge in this game.
Yeah, I think it was big that coming out of the bye, we didn't see Kyle Monangai take on a bigger role. And the fact that Swift keeps producing, they're not going to pull him out of that lead back role and that big volume role unless the injury is worse than what we're hearing. And right now, it seems like he's going to be out there. It seems like he's going to be fine. So I agree with you. I do have him a couple spots ahead of Kimani Vidal this week. What about Jordan Mason, who we brought up a little while ago there in one of the questions? I answered Jordan Mason as the guy that I would start in that one. Jordan Mason still getting it done. Even in the last game, he got some work in the receiving game as well, which is something that we didn't necessarily expect from his profile. How do you think he stacks up against Kimani Vidal this week?
So I'll still give the edge to Jordan Mason. I feel a bit more comfortable about recommending Mason over Vidal if Jalen Carter for the Eagles was supposed to be out, but I think they are projecting him to be in for this game against the Eagles. But still, I mean, Jordan Mason right now at 69% of the rushing attempts. That's without Aaron Jones in the lineup. But more importantly, 100% of the goal line carries so far, and that's with Xavier Scott mixing in. I mean, he got a touchdown, I believe, a couple of weeks ago there playing in London. But also seeing Jordan Mason used primarily in the 2-minute drill as well, that gives enough workload for me to at least be somewhat more confident about Mason than Vidal, who might see, I don't know, a little bit of a split between him and Hassan Haskins.
Yeah, I think people who are even worried about when Aaron Jones comes back here, I don't think it's a serious concern. I think Jordan Mason showed us he is the lead back in this backfield. And yeah, Aaron Jones might siphon a few touches once he comes back, but Jordan Mason is the guy. I feel very confident in him as an RB2 this week and an RB2 moving forward. I also have him a couple spots ahead of Kimani Vidal. What about the last one here? I think I might go the other way on this one. Alvin Kamara, longtime superstar, not quite the same this year for fantasy though. What about him versus Vidal?
I think I'd go Vidal here. Now, this might be a scoring setting type of tiebreaker here because it was full PPR. I think I might go Kamara, 20+% target rate over the last 3 weeks, and Chicago is allowing the highest completion rate to running backs so far. And if you do think it's going to be a back and forth matchup between the Bears and the Saints, I would lean towards Kamara. But I'm with you. I mean, Vidal, even though there was something of a 70-30, 60-30 split between him and Haskins, I mean, there's enough there from an explosive rushing rate and also seeing him rip off some of those like longer runs to get into the end zone. I'd give it to Vidal in this matchup.
Yeah, I think it would take Vidal struggling pretty seriously early in the game for him not to get the majority of the touches this week. They can't put that back in the box. Even though it was in a good matchup last week, he is going to come out. He is going to lead the way. He's not quite as good as those first two guys we talked about, but Alvin Kamara is definitely splitting with Kendre Miller in my mind. So I'm going with Vidal on that one. Totally agree with you there. We are lockstep. All right, let's get the boys back in here.
Look at that. All right, it's time for Make Your Pick. Gonna see some questions here and get them answered, and we'll let Harmon go here. Well, it's just me and Harmon. Just me and Harmon. Never mind. So Harmon, you get all of these. Jamie Chambers comes in with the first one. Have PPR flex 2. Olave, Dowdle, Waddle, or Vidal. What do you think?
Ooh, great options. Right now, I think at this point, shout out to you, buddy. You have a hell of a team here. I think at this point, Rico Dowdle's got to be in your starting lineup. It's a great matchup against the Jets. He's been cooking, and I think he runs out as the lead back at least this week. And I just think this Panthers run game is awesome. So I'm playing him certainly this week. Tough call for the second one between Jalen Waddle and Chris Olave. As the screen shows here, they're very close in my rankings. They're very close in rankings generally, but I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle here. Very close. I'm really tempted to say Olave, but I think right now I just trust Jalen Waddle's volume right now just a tick more.
A quick update from London before we bring up the next Make Your Pick. We have a 34-yard touchdown by Travis Hunter on the offensive side of the ball. Jags get a touchdown, 28-7. Travis Hunter gets in the end zone. Hey, just a little bit of something feels good right now. David, with the next question, I'll Make Your Pick. Need to start 2 in flex. A.J. Brown, Tetaroa, Golden, and Mason Taylor. Half PPR. Make Your Pick. What do you think?
Yeah, Tedero McMillan, I think, is somebody I'm putting in my lineup. Difficult matchup. He also has to deal with the return of superstar wide receiver Jalen Coker, but nevertheless, the volume's been great there for McMillan. I'm locking him into my matchups this week. I'm thinking he's pretty good to play here. And, man, this second one, I don't really want to play A.J. Brown. Like I said, he's somebody that I'd like to go away from, but I'm just not sure I feel good enough about playing a tight end over him. And even Matthew Golden, he played well in that game last week. He produced, but he did not get a bump in terms of his route participation. It was actually lower than the previous 2 weeks. So I think it's still a little risky to bench A.J. Brown and play Matthew Golden. So I'll go with him for the other spot.
All right, let's get another one in here. This next one comes from B. And B wants you to pick 1 wide receiver and 1 flex. Williams, Bourne, Walker, Warren, much appreciated. What do you think?
Damn, bro. Oh, this is tough. I think right now Tyler Warren's the guy we're definitely playing in the flex. Can't get away from him there. In terms of Jamison Williams, Kendrick Bourne, Kenneth Walker for the wide, well, I guess it's 1 flex, 1 wide receiver. So yeah, I'm going Tyler Warren over Kenneth Walker. And then between JMO and Kendrick Bourne, it feels like the right answer should be Jamison Williams, but right now Kendrick Bourne is producing and playing well and is still in a pretty decent spot here. I think I'll go with Kendrick Bourne. If you need that safer floor play, I'd go with Jamison Williams if you're just shooting for the ceiling.
We are just getting started here. We're all the way up until 1 o'clock to get you the latest action and news that you need to know. Coming up next, Mr. Reliable is going to be hanging out on Sunday Night Football. Bajan by the Bay. We'll tell you what to expect from the Falcons on Sunday night. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. We're going to be here up to 1 p.m. We do have action going on right now, the always amazing international series of games. We now have a 28-7 score. Travis Hunter, 6 catches, 85 yards, gets a touchdown there, a 34-yard tutty for him that gets Jacksonville on the board. The Rams with the ball and driving, again, up 28-7. Devontae with a couple of touchdowns there. I think that's a pretty expected result from him, given the wide receiver issues that they had health-wise. Gentlemen, we've got a big game coming between the Falcons and the 49ers. So let's take a look at this one. 49ers favored by 1.5 this game tonight in Santa Clara. Let's take a look at some of the matchups that we absolutely love here. Matt Harmon, what do you got your eyes on?
Oh, I've got my eyes squarely on the fact that Drake London, leading the NFL in targets, is back on the menu, boys. He was the only wide receiver to catch a pass on Monday Night Football for the Atlanta Falcons. That probably will not happen this week. Darnell Mooney set to potentially make his return, but nevertheless, he has still been getting pummeled with volume of late. 26 targets for 18 catches and 268 yards and a pair of touchdowns on either side of the bye, the game before and the game after. His slot rate has actually been pretty similar, 34.7% these last 2 weeks, 33.7% the games weeks 1 through 3. However, he has just been getting the football more often when he's gone into the slot. He's been targeted on 52% of his routes from the slot in these last 2 games. Nevertheless, though, it's not as if he's just been a slot merchant here either. He's also got 14 targets, 10 catches for 143 yards when he's lined up on the outside. This guy is a baller. He's a top 10 wide receiver, bare minimum rest of season. I think people can get very excited for what Drake London has done and is about to do the rest of the way.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm starting to get sneaky excited about this Falcons team in general. Chris, what do you got your eyes on?
Yeah.
So I'll take the other potential, maybe the wide receiver 2 in this passing game, even though Darnell Mooney might be coming back, and that's Bijan Robinson. As of right now, he's probably the safest pick if you had let's say you drafted at the 3rd or 4th spot, because even though Bijan Robinson has been essentially sharing the backfield with Tyler Algier, 57% of the carries, which is 23rd amongst all running backs. I mean, he's been making up a lot of his opportunity in the receiving game. Through 6 weeks, Bijan Robinson is one of 3 running backs with a 20+% target rate that's joining Devon Achane and Christian McCaffrey. But we're still getting all the good stuff from a rushing standpoint from Robinson. 5th in rushing success rate, 8th in explosive rushing rate as well. And of course, when he doesn't make up for all of it on the ground, 2.5 yards per route run. That's first amongst all running backs. I mean, if you compared his efficiency as a receiver to all the other wide receivers, he would actually be just behind Amon-Ra St. Brown from a receiving efficiency standpoint. So if we're getting all of the good stuff from a rushing standpoint, once he gets the ball, I mean, now he's also working as a receiver and going up against the Fred Warner-less 49ers defense that's now 13th in the amount of rushing yards per game allowed to running backs. And Bijan Robinson getting the end zone, I'd take that bet.
Boone, what do you get your eyes on?
Can Kendrick Bourne do it again? Back-to-back weeks, over 140 yards. They're expected to get George Kittle back this week, so we're going to have to factor that into things. But it looks like Kendrick Bourne probably will be the number 1 receiver one more time here. Juwan Jennings going to be out there, still playing at less than 100%. Ricky Pearsall still on the sidelines. Bourne just absolutely crushing it. And a big thing here that I don't know if everyone caught this week, we found out him and Mac Jones are buddies. They are very, very close going back to their time with the Patriots. If we had known that, I probably would have ranked him even higher the last couple of weeks. But now we do. He's right up there, sort of a fringe low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. I think we're going to see yet another big game from him here.
Yeah, just a reminder, coaching matters as we see people leave certain franchises and have success with other franchises. All right, let's get to primetime picks, which is really basically the Justin Boone show. And this is Boone's party, and we're all barely invited to it as he wins yet again with 60.5 points, a just absolute shellacking. He is now 4 wins on the season. He's leading in total points. Miraculously, number 2 in total points is Matt Harmon, who is number 2 yet again this week, yet has 0 wins. So as has been the case every single week, Harmon's going to pick first. You know what we do. We pick players from, we got 2 Monday Night Football games, and we have Sunday night. So this week we have Atlanta, San Francisco, then we have Tampa Bay, Detroit, we have Houston, Seattle. Pick one from each. That's where we're going to go in a snake draft in the order that we currently see, which has been the order every week of this show. So, Harmon, you are picking first, Boone picking last, and that has meant nothing to the success. Harmon, who do you got?
Anyways, we're on to week 7. All right, I am taking Jackson Smith-Njigba first overall in this contest because let me tell you what, people, my esteemed colleagues here are going to be picking some goofy players from this matchup, Houston Texans, Seattle Seahawks later on here. Don't you worry about that. I'm locking in the best play from this game right off the top. JSN, let's go.
All right. I mean, I don't know about goofy players from that game, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I'll take, of course, the target hog and Amon-Ra St. Brown going against the Bucks, the better part of the Bucks defense from a wide receiving standpoint. Give me RSB for sure.
This one's easy. A great analyst just said perfect pick if you're picking around third, which is where I'm picking is a guy named Bijan Robinson. Like, I'm just not overthinking this. I need points. I'm just taking Bijan. Like, there's just very little thought process that goes into this. I just see Bijan, I take Bijan. That's the way it works, which means Boone gets 2 in a row here yet again to kick our asses with.
I'm going to do the same thing you did. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going with Christian McCaffrey in the 4 spot to finish off the first round. We know the kind of volume that he gets. And then I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs, who even though he's sharing that backfield and even though he's going up against the Bucs defense, they haven't been quite as good against fantasy running backs this year. So McCaffrey and Gibbs at the end of the first of the 1-2 turn here, I'm happy with that.
Well, that is a pretty good pick, which puts me back on the board. I'm going to go Rachaad White in this one. Look, if any of the wide receivers were really healthy, I would feel super comfortable with that. I don't. So I'm just going to go with where I can hopefully get some volume and maybe get some trash touchdowns. That's I'm trying to trash my way to a win here, Chris.
Yeah, well, speaking of volume, I had to go Drake London here. Who else would you want to take out of the Atlanta passing game if you took Bijan? I have to take Drake London here for all the points that Harmon just laid out.
Harmon?
Oh, man, nothing better than picking a pair of guys coming off the injury report to play in this game. Potentially, I am going George Kittle and Mike Evans with my back-to-back picks here. Yes, whenever you can take dudes in their 30s coming off injuries in their first game back, you gotta do it. But listen, I think that both of these guys are in excellent spots. Kittle should come back to a full workload for a team that's running a ton of plays but not scoring a ton of points. That guy helps you score points. Meanwhile, Mike Evans comes back off his annual hamstring injury. He always balls like basically right after, and he gets a matchup with the Lions defense is very, very banged up on the back end.
All right, that means, Chris, it is back to you.
So I will have to. I'll take Nico Collins out of this matchup, like between them and the Seahawks. I'm not feeling great about it with how often they've been able to get to the quarterback. We just saw them essentially faceplant Trevor Lawrence 9 times last week, so I'm assuming they're going to do the same thing to CJ Stroud. But if anybody's going to get at least one deep shot, I guess it should be Nico.
Well, and this is what Harmon projected at the very beginning. We are stuck with the bottom of the barrel in a game that is interesting. So, like, I got a 50-50 shot on this with a backfield that makes me very uncomfortable. So I'm going to bet that it's Kenneth Walker III that gets me all the way down to the 1-yard line and that it's Zach Charbonnet that finishes off inside the goal line. I take Charbonnet for trash touchdown. That's my hope here, which means that I'm throwing it to Boone, and I swear to God, Boone, if you take Kenneth Walker and he wins here, I may never speak to you again.
Oh, you know I'm taking Kenneth Walker here. Though I will say, I think Harmon's right when he's talking about goofy picks. We're making a couple goofy picks because that's all you can call the Seahawks backfield at the moment. It doesn't matter who's more efficient. It doesn't matter anything. They just keep splitting it in the strangest of ways. And I don't think it's a terrible pick to go with Charbonnet. He's probably the favorite to get a touchdown, but Walker's the one that can break the big play. Let's hope he does it this week.
If you're right now, everybody watching this, just fade Charbonnet and go put everything in the bank on Kenneth Walker III. Because
100%.
That is the way this season. I mean, this is just empty the account, go full empty on Kenneth Walker. That's the way this thing goes. Let's get some hurry up offense in here. We got a bunch of YouTube chat questions, so we're going to get a bunch of them in here, and we'll start with Ping Bong. I don't really know if that's how Ping Bong wants it said, but that's how I'm saying. Ping Bong, need one half PPR. Emmanuel Wilson if Jacobs is out. Travian Henderson, Bam Knight, or Tyjae Spears. What do you think, Harmon?
Oh, God, of course. I got the Garbo question here. Man, I don't know. I don't have a great lean on this one. I might go Bam Knight, honestly. Probably the decent bet for goal line carries. I like the way the offense moved with Jacoby Brissett last week. I guess go with Bam Knight. Who knows?
God, we got frustrated Harmon, we got wasting time Harmon, and we got I don't care Harmon, all in one answer. That is brilliant.
The parlay hits.
Parlay hits. Brad is the next question that comes up from the Hurry Up offense. Brad says, pick 2, Jordan Addison, Henderson, Fannin Jr., full PPR. What do you think, Chris?
I also thought that was a little bit of Chris Collinsworth coming out of there, Matt Harmon. Like, I don't know, Mike. That's what I thought Harmon sounded like for a half second there, too. But no, I'll give it to Jordan Addison. I will take in that matchup, and also Harold Fannin. Those would be the 2. I mean, Addison coming back, like getting the Eagles secondary, which has been a little bit banged up, and Fannin in the rain game. I'll take that one, too.
All right, Bill is the next question in the YouTube chat. Bill Wicks says, which waiver wire wide receiver hero, Luke McCaffrey or Bourne? Boone, I think we know that you're all in on Bourne on this. Are you rethinking it? What do you think?
No, I'm definitely going with Bourne here. I see Bourne, like I said, as that kind of fringe low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, where McCaffrey's he's got a little more ambiguity. We're not really sure whether he's going to be the guy. He's the one I would place my chip on, but he's more of like a wide receiver 4 flex option with some upside.
All right, Zach Pulowski is our next question in the chat. And Zach says, coin flip or nah? Sutton or Diggs at wide receiver 3? Ask FFL. What do you think, Harmon?
Yeah, I don't know about a coin flip. I do have these guys rather close in my rankings, but I would go with Courtland Sutton on this one. Typically thrives in these like man coverage situations for him. So a slight lean to Courtland Sutton on this one.
With time to spare, no less, that Chris gets the next question. And the next question comes from Peter. Peter says, Jaden or call me maybe. What do you think?
Ooh, nice.
I think it still has to be Jaden Daniels, even though I do like Drake May in this matchup. I'm assuming they're going to pour it on, but they could just as easily pour it on with Ramondre Stevenson falling into the end zone a few times and limiting how much we get out of Drake May in this matchup. So even though Jaden Daniels is going to be weapon-less or have a few less guys to pass to, I'll still give the nod to Jaden Daniels today.
Give the nod to anybody in your fantasy league that played Devontae Adams today, as he has his 3rd touchdown of the game. It is 35-7 at this point. Devontae Adams with 3 touchdowns. Big game for Devontae, which, I think we all kind of saw coming. But, boy, watching it happen this way is impressive. Okay, from the international action to Monday night, we've got a Monday Night Football doubleheader coming up next. We'll break it down, tell you what to look for. It's Fantasy Football Live. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. I'm your host, Jason Fitz, with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone, some of the best analysts in all the land as we get you ready for kickoff at 1 p.m. There's already a game underway in London, and at least we got some offense. It's like a tradition on this show. Every week there's at least one quarterback that plays just terrible football in the early Sunday morning game. Today, that's Trevor Lawrence. But if you've got Devontae Adams, boy, you're happy. 5 catches, 35 yards, fine. 3 touchdowns in this game. 35-7 is the score. This game has not even been close. The Jags offense has looked wildly out of sync throughout the duration of the entire game. They just can't get anything going. This has been a worst-case scenario so far. They are driving, trying to put some more trash points on, and we'll see if it leads to anything. I also want to get you updated on the actives and inactives from earlier in the day. Some unexpected news there for some people. Stephon Diggs is active. Brock Bowers inactive. Garrett Wilson inactive. The surprise of the morning for some, Jacoby Myers, they were going to try and give it a go with a toe injury, is now inactive in that game. He will not play. Also, later in the afternoon, Mike Evans expected to play. Emeka Egbuka is a game-time decision. Sorry, that's Monday night. Bucky Irving, Christian Kirk, both out from Monday night. Let's get to that Monday Night Football action as we have a doubleheader. So let's start with the Bucs at the Lions is one of the big matchups from Monday night. Currently, the Lions a 6-point favorite. 52.5 is the over-under on that game taking place in Detroit at 7 p.m. Chris Allen, what did you got your eyes on for this one?
So the thing I'm going to be looking towards is the backfield for the Detroit Lions. And is this going to be the end of Jahmyr Gibbs as the clear-cut RB1? Because the opportunity bump that we wanted for Jahmyr Gibbs and why we were drafting him in the early parts of the first round, that happened for him from an opportunity standpoint. 53% of the rushing attempts through 6 weeks, 16% target rate, even being used more in a short yardage standpoint, 64% of the team's short yardage carries. But the effectiveness hasn't really carried over from 2024. Last year, he was second in explosive rushing rate. Essentially, if you bet on a Jahmyr Gibbs over on his longest rush, you were probably going to be able to make some money, but he's 20th in explosive rushing rate through 6 weeks. 3.3 adjusted yards after contact per attempt. That's down around the league average after being 7th in that same metric in 2024. All of that to say, we've now seen a couple of weeks where he's getting the carries while not being as effective on the field. And even Dan Campbell talking about wanting to get David Montgomery a bit more involved. Now, going up against the Bucs defense, that you're more or less running into the teeth of that defensive unit. Do we see David Montgomery essentially get more involved, not just as a rusher, but as a receiver? And so with how little we've seen of David Montgomery, could this be the game where Gibbs gets a little bit less work and now a bit more from Montgomery? That's what I'll be checking out for this Monday night matchup.
Harmon, what about you? What you got your eyes on for Monday night?
Yeah, I'm definitely wanting to keep an eye on these Buccaneers pass catchers without Chris Godwin and likely without Emeka Egbuka. I'd be pretty surprised if he plays in this game, but I could totally be wrong about that. Total game time decision, as we have noted. Nevertheless, here, they've got an interesting cast of characters behind Mike Evans and the boys. It does sound like Mike Evans is going to come back for this game, which obviously is going to be excellent news for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers and just the offense in general. He still looks like a great player, somebody that's been crushing it when he is out there. Beyond him, though, we've got Sterling Shepard as kind of that steady veteran. We have Tez Johnson as a rookie vertical threat. He's a guy who weighs 142 pounds, but does fly down the football field. We've already seen that. I think he's somebody that if you're in need of that desperation Hail Mary type of play, he's someone you can look to. Cade Otton as the tight end. Also, don't forget about him. We've seen Cade Otton step up as a big-time target earner when there's injuries, especially to kind of the power slot receivers in this offense. I'm thinking about when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down last year. Emeka Egbuka kind of fits in that archetype. So if you need help at tight end, Cade Otton's not the worst option either.
All right, let's take a look at the next Monday night matchup that we have. The next Monday night game, Texans at Seahawks. That's a 10 p.m. start. When you look at this game, and Boone and I will break this game down. When you look at this game, I think we've talked a lot about the running back splits and what they look like throughout the course of this game. We just have to acknowledge at some point we don't know what Charbonnet and Kenneth Murray are going to look like. I agree with what everybody has said throughout the course of this entire show. Kenneth Walker, I should say, is by far the more explosive running back here with more opportunity. But at the end of the day, what's working for the Seahawks is just letting it play itself out as it plays itself out. That's always a danger. If we're looking at it from a fantasy football standpoint, I don't know what that split's going to look like. But if we look at it from a real standpoint, Seattle's doing just fine, splitting it just the way they are. So I think it's pretty unpredictable and pretty dangerous either way with that running back position. Boone, what do you get your guys on for this one?
Are we going to get a post-bye rookie bump for some of the rookies on the Texans? That's what I'm curious about. We saw Woody Marks have that big game a few weeks ago, and then he kind of fell back to earth. But it was a weird game script against the Ravens, right? It was that blowout. They really didn't need him to go off. They leaned on Nick Chubb. They brought in some of the backups. I think moving forward, including in this game, we might see them fall behind. And in a trailing game script, I think that's going to favor him potentially. And he's the younger back. So I think as the year goes along here, we're going to see more Woody Marks. Will we see that coming out of the bye? I have him ranked ahead of Nick Chubb this week. Not by much, but I do. And then maybe the bigger thing now is the receivers, because Christian Kirk, he's hurt again. Hurt his hamstring. That's what he was dealing with earlier in the season when he missed time. He's going to be out. So Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel as well. These guys are in play. I think Higgins is the more interesting one, the higher drafted guy. I think he's in the mix as a potential flex play this week. Noel would be a pretty risky long shot flex play. We did see him find the end zone in that last game, but coming off the bye, I think all these guys are going to get more opportunity, and I think fantasy managers should be paying attention.
Yeah, keep an eye on that game. Over-under on it, 41. So it looks like it could be low scoring. All right, gentlemen, Harmon, Boone, why don't you guys start yelling enough already while we go make some bets?
Yes, one of my favorite segments here. This is when we get some stuff off our chest, some things when you're just ready to say, like, enough already. Let's stop talking about it. Let's stop thinking about it. You don't want to deal with it anymore. Boone, I'm going to let you go first. What are you ready to say enough already to?
This is the segment where you can just talk about me winning in the primetime picks and you can finally let it all off your chest. For me, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals struggles. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals struggles here. I am so sick of hearing about this team. For fantasy, it's very clear. Trey McBride, an elite tight end. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's not even what we thought he was going to be right now. You look at him more as like a wide receiver 3 with some wide receiver 2 upside. He's coming off of concussion, so what is he going to look like in this game? And other than that, what are we that interested in this offense? Like, Jacoby Brissett's going to be out there. That might actually be a positive for this passing game. That's what we saw the last time out. But Kyler Murray still rostered in about 75% of leagues. Harmon, his highest fantasy finish this year, QB 16. This guy is just a name. I don't know why people care about this dude. I don't know why he gets the headlines that he does. He doesn't even have like that great of a personality. Like, he's not that interesting in interviews. I'm sick of hearing about this Cardinals team. They're 2-4. I think they're going to fall apart. They're already 2 games behind everyone else in that division, about to be 3 games behind the Rams. So why are we talking so much about the Cardinals? I'm done with it. Just play Trey McBride, play Marvin Harrison if you don't have a better option. Try to stay away from that backfield. And let's hope Trey Benson can come back later in the season and maybe give us something for fantasy.
Yeah, buddy. People know that I am right there with you on the enough already take with the Arizona Cardinals. I will not use this segment to complain about my personal problems, which are losing to you consistently in the primetime pick segment. I will, however, give some people some advice here, which is, listen, just don't rush to judgment on these rookie wide receivers. Like, enough already with we got to judge these guys in the first half of their rookie seasons. We see this consistently with players at this position. It takes a minute for guys to ramp up. Yes, sometimes guys get off to a hot start right away. Malik Neighbors last year, Emeka Egbuka this year. That does not mean that the rest of the guys shouldn't be given every chance to grow, develop, for the team to understand exactly what their role should be. Like Travis Hunter, we're seeing him actually finally get involved in this game. Obviously, it's a blowout. You wish it happened in a better situation, but nevertheless, getting involved a little bit more. It takes a minute for some of these players to get used to the NFL game. Certainly guys that are day 2 draft picks as well. So enough already with trying to judge these rookies too early on. Sometimes their entire rookie seasons we can give them a pass for. Look at Rome Odunze last year, thriving now in his second season. So enough already with trying to judge these young players too early. Let's let the situation play out a little bit. All right, we're going to take a step back here, Boone, try to collect ourselves after that emotional outburst. We're going to bring Fitz and Chris back in for some props.
You know what? I feel good. I feel like everybody needs a little bit of hug after that, but I like it. Let's bring the props here. This is a chance to make a little bit of money, and I'll just continue to brag that if you've been paying attention to this segment every week, you've been doing pretty well, because we've been doing pretty well with this. Chris, give me a prop that you like out there.
So I talked earlier about that Bears-Saints game, and I'll go to the passer on the Saints side, Spencer Rattler, and not for his throwing ability, but also his rushing ability in this. I'm going to go over 21.5 rushing yards, which is where I bet it a couple of days ago. And looking at Spencer Rattler as a scrambler, he's actually been pretty effective on the ground once he tucks the ball and runs. He's 11th so far in rushing rate, so from an opportunity standpoint, which is ahead of both Bo Nix and Daniel Jones, but he's averaging around 23.8 yards per game on the ground. And of course, is he effective doing it? And yes, he is. Right now, 13.1 EPA added when he's scrambling. That's just behind only Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. And so looking at him going up against the Bears defense, according to Sam Hoppen, my old buddy who works over at ESPN Bet, the Bears do run the third highest man coverage rate, which allows some of that scrambling to really occur and gives quarterbacks that runway to make up some of their passing inefficiencies, like as a runner. Jaden Daniels, we just watched him get 54 yards just on scrambles alone against that same defense in prime time. Geno Smith got 29 against them, and even JJ McCarthy, back when JJ McCarthy was still playing football, 25 yards just as a rusher, and of course 14 yards as a design runner as well. So this also sets up well enough for Rattler to really, be not just a thrower of the football, but as a rusher of the football as well. So I'm going Spencer Rattler over 21.5 rushing yards.
I like that a lot, actually. I'll take a look at a prop. And, peek behind the curtain. Our producer, Dan, who does a great job, asked us for our props a couple days ago, and I put this one in, and now it's even easier. Trey Tucker, over 4.5 catches, was my prop already this week, and now with the news that Jakobi Meyers is definitively out for this game, that becomes even easier. I just look on sportsbooks. You can get a pretty good value on him at 6 still as catches. I think that's a high number, but look, he's the only wide receiver that anybody's seen play any meaningful football for this offense. So you're either buying, if you buy that the Raiders are going to complete any passes, it's likely either going to be to Trey Tucker or to Michael Mayer, the tight end. Both are good values in an over reception at around 4.5 to 5.5. So to me, this made a lot of sense even before Jakobi was going to be out, because you knew Jakobi was likely to be limited. But knowing now that he's completely out of this game, this one just falls right in line. Trey Tucker has had some good moments, although he hasn't necessarily had to be the guy in any at any point for the Raiders season. He is somebody that we know Geno has some comfort with, and I think that's going to matter in this offense. So Raiders are going to get absolutely murdered today. I think it's a 42-14 type game, but Trey Tucker has the opportunity to get some catches, especially because I do think it's going to be a blowout. There's going to be a lot of catches and movement against the prevent defense in the fourth quarter when everybody's just sitting back. So money to be made on some catches there. We're minutes away from kickoff. Let's get in the score. I think we're going to get in the score here. So let's get to the final score from London. That game is done. It is complete. And the final score, 35-7. So Travis Hunter, 8 catches, 101 yards. Speaking of some big numbers in trash time, 8 touches, 101 yards. Did have a 31-yard touchdown, I believe it was, in the first half there. Devontae Adams, 5 catches, 3 touchdowns, tremendous efficiency. Let's bring everybody back together, though. We're going to do some bold predictions. We'll see what everybody thinks could be a bold prediction for this weekend's action. Harmon, I'll let you go first. You're feeling bold. You're feeling spicy, sassy. Give me something.
I am feeling spicy and sassy, and because of that, I'm going to combine 2 players into one here. I think Jalen Coker and Jack Besh of the Raiders and the Panthers, they are going to combine for, let's call it 10 catches and 100-plus yards in this game. So a lot of ways I can win here on this one. But look, I think both these guys are players. If you got space on your bench, maybe stash them ahead of the waiver run next week, because Besh, I think, is a really good player whose playing time has actually ticked up. Hasn't gotten involved in the offense just yet, but is somebody I think can help them hit singles and doubles, which is what this passing game needs. And Jalen Coker is really good. He is the reason they traded Adam Thielen away. Now he's going to step into that role. It's been vacated. Hunter Renfrow is inactive in this game. We've seen number 2 targets go off against the Jets, while the number 1 is tracked around by Sauce Gardner. So I think both those guys have some useful games that combine for 10 catches and over 100 yards this week.
Oh, I like that. That is very bold. Boone, what do you got for us? It's bold. Well, I don't know how you top that level of spice, but come on, give me something hot.
How about Quinshawn Judkins for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns? He gets that cupcake matchup against the Dolphins defense. This is a guy that before last week had at least 70 scrimmage yards in every single game, even going back to that first game where he barely played in it. He looks like a true star, and I know it was a down week last week, but now he's going to get this perfect bounce back spot. The weather's not going to be great. They're not going to pass the ball as much. They're going to lean on him in this one. He is a mutter. He is going to come through with a huge, huge performance this week.
All right, I like that. Chris Allen, got a bold take for me?
I'll say that Ladd McConkey gives us another, let's say, top 6 or at least top 10 performance, as we saw him perform really well over the past couple of weeks. Now, I know folks might have some concern with Quentin Johnston coming back and turning that duo we saw for the Chargers passing game back into a trio. But with Ladd McConkey really showing out in the short to intermediate parts of the field, where we think that Justin Herbert is really going to have to target, with him getting some of that defensive pressure from the Colts pass rush, and that really does benefit a guy like McConkey, who has been primarily playing on the interior, working that short to intermediate parts of the field. So if this turns into that back and forth matchup like we were talking earlier, where Chargers can make it a game, Daniel Jones is forced to pass a bit more, and also we talked earlier about the number of defenders that the Colts are going to be missing in this matchup. I mean, out of that group right now that can take advantage of not just the fact that they're going up against a weaker secondary, but the fact that they're passer is having to work behind a porous offensive line. Ladd McConkey is that dude. So I'm looking for him to put up another top 10 performance in week 7.
I'll give you guys a quick bold prediction here. In the first game after an in-season coaching change since 2020, the team that made that change is 10-4 against the spread. 10-4 against the spread. You want to get bold?
Don't do it.
Cam Ward's going to have the best game of his career. The Titans are going to cover. The Titans are going to cover against the Patriots. The Titans are going to cover. They're not going to win. They're going to cover. I mean, come on. I can't get that stupid, but they're at least going to. I realize how much this game means to Vrabel, though. I do think that's a difference maker. Vrabel just wants to absolutely destroy that franchise. Let's get to the hurry-up offense. We'll bring everybody in with the 25 seconds on the clock, and we'll get some of these questions answered for you across the board. We start with Big Island Surfer, who says, for my flex, Breece Hall, Kittle, BTJ, or Dobbins, PPR. I got part of that answer. What do you think, Harmon?
Well, definitely don't play BTJ, since he already played. I miss close between Breece Hall and George Kittle, but the Panthers' run defense has been sneaky good of late, so I'm going to go with George Kittle here. A little bold. Wonder who you're starting at tight end over Kittle, but yeah, I think Kittle comes back to full workload here.
All right, just in right before the whistle, too. Well done. Maurice Henley with the next question. #AskFFL. I traded Bucky and Rico for Nico and Zach. Terrible trade or what? What do y'all think? Chris, what do you think?
Ooh, I would rather keep the Bucky and Rico side of that, because with all of the discussion we were having earlier about Zach Charbonnet and how that touch shares between him and Ken Walker, and of course Nico, while he does get the lion's share of the targets like from CJ Stroud, I mean, it's going to be tough sledding, especially over the next couple of weeks with the number of hits he's taken. So I'd say that's probably a bad trade.
Maurice, hit us up in advance next time. Hit us before you make the trade. We'll help you through it. The next question comes from a name that I can't even pretend to pronounce. Said, should I start Tony Pollard or take a chance on Tajay Spears, PPR league? Thanks. Boone, what do you think?
Oh, this is so tough because, yeah, my brain says it should be Tajay Spears, because when they fall behind, and I think they're going to be behind in this game, you would play Spears, but Pollard is the safer option. He's going to normally get more volume. He's a better bet to get a touchdown. So I would say Pollard very reluctantly.
I love the look on y'all's faces when you know the question's coming to you and you just don't want it. It's my favorite part of this whole segment. The next question comes from Hospiprof, the hospitality professor. I love this. Says, don't cry for me, Argentina. Don't cry for me. Do I play Dak or Mahomes at quarterback in standard? What do you think? Throw this to Harmon.
Yeah, Evita, hell of a program. So good job for you. Good tastes. I would go with Patrick Mahomes there. He's getting his full set of weapons back. He's been incredible so far. He's taken off running. Dak is a great play as well, but I'll go slightly to Mahomes here.
Yeah, just don't give me the Madonna version of Don't Cry for. Like, I don't need any of that. Like, the next question comes from.
It was great.
The Madonna version was terrible. Melonhead is the next question.
Terrible.
Full PPR between Genty, Dowdle, and Rashee. What do you think, Chris?
It's pretty easily Rashee Rice here. I know that between the two running backs right now, I mean, your guy, Ashton Genty, has to go up against the Chiefs defense. Rico Dowdle might have to potentially split the backfield with Chuba Hubbard coming back. So I think with Rashee Rice, and we know that even though there is a potential concern for how he's going to look in his first game back, he does get those underneath targets. He does get some of those layup looks from Patrick Mahomes. Rashee Rice in full PPR, fire him up.
The next question comes from Fam First. Fam First says, help, need this win. Nix, Stroud, or Dart? Those are your options, Boone. Nix, Stroud, or Dart for fam first. What do you think? Full PPR.
Going with Nix. I think that's the safest play there. Dart's a little risky in that matchup. Otherwise, I would normally go with him, but I think Nix is the play here. We've talked about how Cortland Sutton's in a great spot this week. I don't think we've seen the best from Bo Nix yet this season, and I think this is a spot where he's going to have a good game.
Okay, gave us all sorts of time to left over. All right, there we go. The next one comes from Headley I don't know how to say your last name, Headley Lamar. Good afternoon, boys. Full PPR, A.J. Brown or Wan'Dale Robinson. What do you think, Harmon?
It's come to this. So it's come to this. We've got A.J. Brown in a conversation with Wan'Dale Robinson. God, see, this is the fun part about doing content. It's like, yeah, I made a whole case for benching A.J. Brown. Do I really have the stones to say Wan'Dale Robinson over A.J.? I do. Yeah, do it. Why not?
Oh, now that's bold. There we go. This is where the show is gone. Dan Brand Hawk says, help filling a flex spot. Waller, Booty, or the great Jalen Coker PPR. Thanks for the great work, guys. What do you think, Chris?
I'll go Kayshon Boutte in this matchup. Would do like how he fits going up against the Tennessee secondary. Doesn't have to play in the bad weather game, which is what Darren Waller will have to do. And Coker, it's his first game back, and I know that wide receiver 2s going up against the Jets secondary has been something of a decent matchup, but I'll take Boutte here.
Remember, we're back here every Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, all the way to 1 p.m. to help you get your lineup set. And we're here all week. You can wake up with Yahoo Sports Daily, hang out with me every single day, from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. Have to think about what time. And catch the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast live on Yahoo Fantasy YouTube. We're there for you every single day, every single week. Good luck in your fantasy week matchups this weekend. I hope you win and all of your enemies lose. That's on behalf of everybody that works their tails off. We appreciate you watching. See you next week.